I struggled with like just homesick, dude. I
You
would
can help
I would
push the game to stop the electrons. What you say? Or I like the people with your passion. It's super nice. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Field, Voices of Football. I'm with Coach Leone Cruz, a local soccer legend and dedicated coach with a storied playing career that plans NCAA Division One, MLS, international teams in Mexico. Leone's expertise and passion for the games are unmatched. From his days as an Adidas All-American to his professional career with top-tier teams with Seattle Sounders and Real Salt Lake, Leone has seen it all, and now he's dedicated to sharing his knowledge and experience with the next generation of athletes. Join us as we hear his inspiring story, learn from the insights of the beautiful game. Thank you, Coach Leone, for being here with us.
thank you very much for letting me be a part of this, man. I like what you're doing, and that was a really nice introduction. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to have you on here. I seen your history, like, oh man, I got to get him on here.
Man, I'm happy that you see it that way, dude. I mean, I'm just another soccer guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No, that's cool. I appreciate it, and it's always nice to, as we say, chop it up with somebody, you know, who shares similar interests and passions. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. So my first question is, how'd you get into soccer? How's your background into playing soccer?
Yeah, I think it was like I was just born into it, influenced by family. My dad was passionate about the game. So my dad was like, like we had chatted before we started. My dad was like an amateur player. He played in men's leagues. Um, he enjoyed the game and he shared it with us, with me, my older brothers, my sisters and my brothers. And yeah, so he just, he was passionate about it. We saw him doing it, and I think any child who kind of sees their dad either doing a sport or taking or being passionate about something like that, naturally you kind of gravitate towards it as a kid. So I'd spend all my weekends either at soccer games for my older brothers. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there, man. 3 years old, I think that's probably whenever I started playing organized. Um, Obviously before that I was kicking balls around with my brothers at two and a half. Um, but yeah, I think it was just kind of like a natural thing, and being around older brothers who enjoyed the game, who were passionate about it, and being around supportive parents who encouraged me, who got me to practice, who would sometimes take my hand and say, "Hey, you know what? You got to go to practice. I know you're tired, but we got to get you there." Um, so yeah, man, there's like a snowball effect. It just kept compounding year after year, and yeah, it's just you start to learn how life and soccer kind of go together. And
Mhm.
um, and as you get older, you can't see that whenever you're a child. You just think, oh, okay, hey, I'm playing a game, I'm playing this and that. And it was like that for a long time. But as I matured and grew more into becoming an adult or a man, you start to see these things. And yeah, it would have been nice to know it early on. I think things would be a lot different, um, but that's life, so
Yeah, no, completely agree. Soccer has so many lessons that you can learn that not just soccer, but even in life.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. did you have a soccer background? Did you play
I
ball
didn't.
in?
My first time I seen soccer was in like 2002 when Mexico was playing Italy at the World Cup. I remember
Yeah,
that goal against Borghetti.
Getty. He scored that
Yeah,
hat trick.
yeah. After that, I fell in love with the game. I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny because are you Mexican?
I am. Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it's funny how that works, man. It's like, well, there's two things I want to say is like there's those I was just having this conversation with one of my clients yesterday. It's like there's this moment that happens where kids or us, it like solidifies that moment where you're like, dude, I love this game. This game is awesome. And you know, there was a dad who was like, oh yeah, he said his son once his son saw Ronaldo score that goal in the World Cup, it was a free kick against Spain. He's
Okay.
like, dude, after that, it was on. Like we knew we loved it. We knew he loved it. They just became like this massive Ronaldo fan. And then now, you know, you're talking about it too. It's like, dude, this moment happened, and I remember that goal. I remember that goal. I remember that game very well. And that goal that Borghetti scored
Yeah.
was just a beautiful
It
goal.
was. It was a beautiful goal. It was.
Yeah. And you know, against Buffon, who's a legendary goalkeeper, and you know, it's like you're you're Mexico and you're playing against Italy, who's, you know, pretty much one of the top three, top four teams consistently in Europe, especially at that time. And yeah, it's just it's pretty cool, man. Pretty
It
cool.
was, and the way he did it, because he could just do a regular goal from a header, but the way he
Yeah.
was coming in running, and then hit the ball the opposite way. It
For
was
sure.
just plain beautiful.
Yeah, in soccer and in most sports, they'll say, look, you want to run away so that you can attack going forward. In this instance, he was running forward so that he can hit
Yeah,
back to this post. It's almost contrary to what we would teach, but I think those are those, you know, maybe it was a set piece, maybe they had planned it. I don't know, I'd have to watch it a little bit more. It did seem like it was something that they kind of had worked on before.
probably. Yeah, probably.
But just, I mean, to be able to do it that way, it's difficult to generate power whenever the ball's coming across, you know, and you're going away from it, and then you got to generate the power like that. So
Oh yeah, it was just beautiful, beautiful
yeah,
goal.
that's cool. Yeah.
So you mentioned your dad early on, right? That he
Yeah,
helped. He played soccer, and he's a legend in the game as well, right? Because he still coaches and he's won tournaments. I've seen. I
for
think in
sure. Yeah. So my dad is, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you if you
No, no,
had,
no. Go ahead, go ahead.
so my dad recognizes what the game can, how it can help the community, how it can help lower economic status players, families. So that's really who he's really been able to connect with, you know, and a lot of those families are oftentimes Hispanics, um, or you know, the minorities, right?
Mhm.
And my dad just vibes. That's how my dad vibes, you know. He's like, hey dude, I'm gonna I've got like five, maybe he'll get like two, three, four, five players. And then from there, he shows up, dude. He shows up consistently. It's raining, he'll be out there. You know, he just all he needs is a field. He needs a couple goals, or maybe he sets up his own cones for goals. Um, and yeah, man, it's grown, and now he is and he's been a coach. He coached my older brother's teams. But those weren't his own clubs. They weren't his, it wasn't anything like that.
Okay.
So now he's actually, this little academy that he has grown, and yeah, he just basically provides an area and an opportunity for players who are interested to come and train. And you know, see, one kid goes to school and says, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to soccer practice, and then he brings one kid from school, and then, you know, it's like they're kids who I think would be interested and curious, and would be willing to do like organized sports, but maybe because of cultural barriers or maybe just not even knowing or not even like parents not even realizing like, oh, hey, I can pay for organized sports, or I can have like a monthly membership for organized sports. Maybe those parents don't even know that that exists, you know, parents
Okay.
that
Yep.
maybe migrants, maybe parents that, first generation that are coming over. Um, and they think, hey, you know what, I can't afford something like that. But with how he does it, it's much very extremely affordable. And yeah, the top players he picks to so basically he has a pool of players, and then the top players he picks and puts them into tournaments and league play. Down here it's called Capital Area Youth Soccer Association, CASA.
Hmm.
And yeah, so they love it, man. And they're hungry for more. They're like, hey coach, when are we gonna, go to this other tournament or this and that? And my dad's pretty chill about it. My dad's not like um he
He
wants
seems
the
pretty chill because he plays the guitar. He posted some videos playing the guitar. I think for Mother's Day,
yeah,
Valentine's Day. It's very cool though. So he
dude,
seems real
that's
cool,
what's
real,
up.
real chill.
Yeah, yeah, no, he's chill, man. He's his own person very much. And that's he's best that way, you know what I mean? He's got his routines. And he's always kind of played the guitar, always, he's always done that, but like now in his later years, now that he's retired, he's really taken to learning that and becoming better at that. It's like when
Okay.
you're 60 plus years old, 65 years old, he just turned 70. When you're that age, who thinks like, hey, I'm gonna get better at this skill, or I'm gonna get better at this, I'm gonna take on this new challenge. So for him, I think it's awesome. And he likes to write songs for, his kids, grandchildren, for mothers on Mother's Day. Um, yeah, I think he does it in his own unique way, and I think that's pretty cool for sure.
Yeah, like I say, he's a legend in his own right for the game. For everything he's done.
Yeah.
And he inscribed the passion for you for the game, right? Has he been the most influential person in your life in terms of coaching? Because I
Yeah.
know I know he like you train with him outside
Yeah.
of your like the off season.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure, man. You know, he my dad has really, what I talked about a support system. Um, and that's really what I've been fortunate to have, man. Because in the game, dude, there's times whenever I said tired earlier, right? Whenever you're tired and you're like, oh, I've been training for 5 days, or I've been training for 4 days straight. Let me get a day off or whatever. There's there's they'll give you that support. They'll say, okay, hey, you know what, take a day off, that's cool. But they'll also pull you along or help you whenever you need it. And I think one, by him sharing the game with me, was definitely the start, and was highly influential. And then him taking notice of hey, you know what, he's got a skill, or an opportunity maybe, that he can take this further. And then I told you he was from Zamora, Michoacan. So
Right, right, yep.
Rafa Marquez is from, and basically we went down to Zamora, and we went to what's called Escuela de Fútbol in
Hmm.
Zamora. And at the time they were connected with Atlas. And
Okay.
we did like a prueba, right? Like we did a basically like an evaluation.
Hmm.
And I don't know, from my understanding, Rafa Marquez's dad was present there during that evaluation, and he basically helped get us into contact. He was like, hey, you know what? I think your kids or it was me and my brother. I think your kids have a good talent. I think they might have an opportunity to play um, at a higher level in a youth academy. So then he put us in touch with Tigres, with like a brother-in-law in Tigres.
Okay.
And then that kind of just changed and morphed into its own thing. And yeah, it's it was like knocking on doors, you know. My dad was willing to go and knock on a door. It's almost like the old Knight's Tale, like boom, boom, boom. Hey, like my son's pretty good. I can't do so much for him. Can you take him and teach him from here? You know what I mean? And then if somebody's willing to take you in and teach you and guide you the right way, then it's like, hey, go on. I've taught you what I can teach you. It's time for you to learn from somebody who knows more. Um, and then hopefully grow and come back as a better person and a better player. And
Okay.
yeah, I think that was definitely the most. He definitely has been extremely influential. I'm super grateful for his influence, for his positive influence
Mhm.
and his support, because there were times whenever, man, it's like you lose an important game, or you get an injury, or you get cut from a team. It's like these things happen. We don't think about this side of football. We talk about all the joy and all the fun that's had. But whenever it becomes um, whenever it becomes a more of a job, or whenever it becomes something that you're trying to pursue, when maybe talent isn't whenever you get to higher levels, man, players are good, and there's a lot of competition, and you have to be ready for that, physically, mentally, technically. And I think that there were some things that if I look back on it now, I just wasn't ready for whenever I went from college. And you just kind of learn those things. But yeah, I did find myself like, you pick up the phone and you're like, hey dude, like, and I say, hey dude, like, hey dad, hey,
Yeah.
like, dude, this is going on, I'm could use a little guidance. So he was definitely influential, man. And I still share the game with him now, like we did futsal together this morning. Every Saturday we do futsal together. Um, I send him players whenever they might need what he provides. And then he'll also send players my way whenever there's something that I can do to help. But yeah, in terms of his influence, massive influence. And I'm just grateful that I get to share the game with him
Right.
still.
Yeah. No, it's an incredible journey. I work in construction with my dad, so
Right on,
man,
dude.
it's an amazing relationship. It's different from just like a regular relationship than
For sure.
working or being with him every single time. So I can understand you being coaching with him side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, our parents they're life happens, and they're not always going to be here with us, but if we can make those moments count, and we can share, you know, that father son or that father mother relationship, or mother son or father son relationship, um, as much as we can. But also, if you, like you said, if you can do business with them, that's nice, man. You're helping them grow in different ways, teaching them things that maybe you learned, and that you've developed, and helping them to continue grow as people as well. I mean, dude, it's one of the biggest and best blessings I have, for sure.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So you mentioned that you play with Tigres, right?
Yes.
Uh, so can you share some of the insights from your time playing for Tigres, and how did it
Yeah.
influence your perspective on the game?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I was young when I went. I was 15. I had just turned six. Yeah, I was like 15 turning 16. So it was the summer that I just turned 16. And I stayed in the Casa Club in Tigres. So basically we went down, me and my dad went down, boom, drops me he drops me off at the Casa Club. And this, we had been building a relationship with Tigres summer after summer. I'd go
Okay.
down and they were familiar. And then finally we get to this point to where they're like, hey, okay, we have you on our short list. We want you to come down. And I think this was one of those moments where it was like, I'm like, dude. I moved to Texas 5 years ago, and dude, I found a home. Like, people here are nice, families are nice, and then I'm gonna go to Mexico. Like, what? So, yeah, man, I went down there, and staying in the Casa Club was great. I made lifelong friends. I still keep in touch with them. I see them at tournaments sometimes that I go to. Um, yeah, so that was great. In terms of the soccer, there was just so much knowledge, man, that was shared. There's things that I do in my trainings that I remember our coaches doing. There's positioning situations that you just don't work on whenever you're in a club, or at least we didn't work on in our clubs at that time. In
Okay.
youth soccer at that time here, maybe some clubs were more developed, but and I'm sure they're much more developed now in terms of tactical awareness and knowledge and technical development. Um, but there, man, you had like, dude, you were waking up and you had breakfast in your casa club. They had, La Doña, who would, she would put together your breakfast, or she'd put stuff out. You go and you make your breakfast, then you walk to the bus. You walk probably about maybe about a mile to the
Yeah.
bus, which the bus would
Okay.
just come by, boom, you hop on the bus, then they take you to Swaswa, which is where the training grounds are. And then once you're there, you're there for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes before you get ready, boom, then you go out to your training. Um, and the preseasons were good. A lot of like fitness, but wasn't wild running. It was like they would take you into the mountains and you maybe run maybe like a kilometer, and then you rest, and then you run a kilometer, and then you rest, and you run a kilometer and rest, but you're doing it at high altitude. That was a very nice experience, and those are things that we don't have the altitude here, but we can still do those types of interval runs that I recall doing.
Okay.
So for my players that I work with now, we'll do interval runs, and we kind of take it as like a mini preseason where, we try to ramp it up, and then we'll bring it down as they're going into their real seasons, right? Um, so yeah, man, I would say tactically and the tempo
Mhm.
of the game were the two things um that I learned the most, because obviously Mexican soccer is a little bit more maybe methodical,
Okay.
where or at least at that time it was. Whereas if I look at a video whenever I was playing youth soccer here, it was like I was like, oh my God, dude, we played terrible soccer. There were maybe one or two players who were doing some skill moves and things like that, but everything else was like, get the ball up, run onto it. And it was like, definitely no playing out of the back.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's where a lot of the game was already, Mexico was already kind of doing that. And Pep Guardiola says it like, you want to play out of the back, you want to find a defender that plays out of the back, go find a player in Mexico. And that's who they found. They got Rafa Marquez.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for us. Like, so when we were playing at 16 years old, we actually got to the final. We lost against America in the final.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I was with the U, it was the third division. So it was like the U16s, and they would bring you in and you'd play with, second division. They'd bring you in with what was called the Primera A. And then they
Mhm.
would have us train sometimes with the first team. So, so yeah, man, I would say we were playing a very mature style of soccer, football at the age of 16 years old, where um, how to pull players out of positions, how to exploit those positions. Um, Everybody was just on the same page, man. It was almost like you almost had play. It was almost like a playbook. Like, I knew as soon as the keeper gets the ball, boom, I'm getting it here. And we were playing out of the back, dude, at that. That was in 2002. You know what I mean? It was like
Okay.
out of the back wasn't really a thing. I don't. I'd like to know when that really came about to be, um, but yeah, that's the thing. The tactics, and the tempo of the game. Because we would, if we needed to kill a game off, um, there was one funny example where we were winning. I think it was maybe 2-1, and had a yellow, and I'm like,
Okay.
they call me Gringo. So I already had a little bit of a target because I'm the gringo playing in the Mexican league, right? And I had a yellow, and my coach is like, do not go anywhere near the ball. Don't get into just don't say anything to the ref, nothing. So ball goes out of bounds, and I pick up the ball, and he's like, "Oh, it's for the other team." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What do you mean it's for the other team?" And I'm, just like, dude, it was obviously for us. So then I'm like, dude, this guy's giving them calls. So then I threw the ball, and I went like this, like,
Oh yeah.
or like that. I did something like that. And I didn't know what that. I just knew that they'd be like, oh, but it's like sign language, like for,
Hmm.
in Spanish or whatever it means. And I don't want to say what it is here, but bam, red card. And I'm like, what? I'm like, so then basically what I'm saying in my head was, man, forget you,
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
what he's saying, he's like, dude, you're basically giving me the finger or something.
yeah. Have you called
So
your mom lately? It's pretty much like, hey, have you called your mom lately? In nicer terms, yeah.
exactly. We called your mom. That's hilarious. Yeah, dude. So, yeah, man, that happened, and that was a learning point where it's like, and these are things that, dude, I remember them, and I tell my players the same thing. Even like caring how to care for your body when you have like a strain or an injury, like they wouldn't allow us to touch the ball. So if you have like a groin injury, let's say a groin injury, at 16, you're going to see the therapist. If you don't go and see the therapist, you're getting in trouble. You're getting fined at 16.
Wow. Okay.
Um, there was one day when I was like, oh, dude, I was sick. I didn't go to practice, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, I stay in the Casa Club, and they're like, dude, we have doctors at the training ground. You don't ever miss a training, and I'm like, okay, but dude, on top of all that, man, I was like, I learned a lot, dude. I learned a lot, and a lot about the game, and me as a 16-year-old being there, dude, and there was actually another dude from Dallas. He ended up staying a little bit longer. He was able to adapt a little bit better than I was. I struggled with like just homesick, dude. I would play a game on Friday, and then literally I wouldn't ask for permission. And this is and I should have, and I just kind of was like, dude, nobody's gonna tell me that I can't go home. So I would play in a game on Friday. I'd have my bag packed, dude, and I'd take a taxi straight to the bus station, hop on a bus, cross the border in the middle of the night, and I'd ask them to drop me off on what's I-35. I don't know if I-35 goes through Kansas City, but it's a massive highway that goes all the way up to Canada. And I'd be like, hey, dude, can you just drop me off on I-35? Drop me off at like 4 in the morning, dude. And I'd be walking with my bag, and I'd walk to my house, walk inside. And my parents are like, what are you think somebody's breaking in? I'm like, dude, I'm so homesick. I don't care if I'm here for only 6 hours. Like, just let me just be home, and I'll go back. So then I did that a couple times, and then I'd go back. So it was tough, man. I learned a lot about the game. I also learned a lot about myself, and I learned that I wanted to go to college.
Okay.
There, I wasn't in school for a semester while I was there, and to me that just felt like I was not doing what I kind of had set forth. Like my mind was like, okay, nobody in my family went to college. I want to go to college. Like I'm going to use soccer as a way to to get into college, you know, and that's what we were taught at that age.
Yeah.
So when you go down to Mexico and you're like not in school, it becomes you're kind of like, dude, what am I doing, dude? Am I like I'm 16, all of my peers are studying and they're getting ready to go to college, and I'm not even in school, you know? So I think now, and Tigres has come a long way. Tigres is great, you know. Tigres is an absolutely fantastic youth club. And I would encourage anybody who has the option to play for them to definitely take that. But I know that they've really stepped everything up in terms of like, you know, education and their Casa Club. The Casa Club back then was a challenge, but you know, it was like that was the period when Tigres started winning, and they just started like on this upward trend of doing really well. So then they got, you know, they were probably generating more money, and they reinvested that into, you know, their youth programs and into their housing and all that. And you know, they did really well, man. They've been doing really well since right around that time, 2002, 2003, all the way up. I think they maybe won maybe 4 or 5 tournaments, maybe more
Right.
since then.
Yeah, yeah. I remember one player because you mentioned they're pretty good on education nowadays. And I remember one player, Tostado. His name was Juan Pablo Tostado, I think. He won the World Cup. He got kicked out because he didn't want to go to school no more
Oh,
from Tigres. Yeah.
really?
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah, because he didn't want to go to study no more. And he's like, "Hey, you gotta study or you're gonna get kicked out." And he got kicked out from there.
Wow, that's interesting. Do you know what year that was?
Uh, I want to say it was
Like
2011 because that's when they won the World Cup in Mexico.
the
Gomez,
80s?
Julio Gomez was there.
Yeah.
Spericuelta was there. Jorge Spericuelta.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah. It- So it's come a long way from what you were telling me now.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, yeah, and you know, kudos. There's a lot of those players who stayed in the Casa Club. They they ended up playing, you know, in the top divisions. Um, and then you know, some didn't. Some moved on. Some moved out. Some went different directions.
Right.
But but yeah, it's really good. I'm happy to hear that they're emphasizing that because, dude, yes, soccer is important, but if you can be if you can be well rounded, if you can be well rounded and you know, and not only play the game at a high level, but also um just have information and knowledge and the ability um to process information. Like soccer players have to be smart, man. There's a lot of information that's coming through, and that's why like soccer players should be educated because they are the players that play at high levels, dude, they're smart, man. They're thinking,
Hmm.
they're processing things so fast. And if you provide them with, you know, education, whatever in whatever field that they might be interested in, you know, I think a lot of them can do well, and then there's a life after soccer and all that, you know. So
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
it's
No.
important.
Yeah. No. After soccer, they're still alive. So after after your adventure with Tigres, did you go to college, or was there something different after
Yeah,
your?
yeah, dude. So yeah, there were like rumblings of SMU kind of maybe having some interest, and I was homesick, and I called my parents. I'm like, dude, I this is so tough. Like, and they're like, well, what are you gonna do if you come back here? Like, what? You know, and my parents were kind of those ones that were like, you know, they hadn't gone to college. They didn't
Mhm.
know much about, like many parents, they don't know much about, they just know, hey, this kid's pretty good at his sport. What should we do with him, you know? And they didn't even have really anybody to ask or guide them. So we took so I told them like, look, I heard that SMU might have interest. And I'm like, I want to go to SMU. And I said, I'll go to SMU. I remember telling my mom, I'm like, she's like, well, how are you going to do that? You know, my mom didn't even know what SMU was. And I'm like, I was like, Mom, I'll find a way. I will do whatever I have to do. I'm so homesick. I will do anything, right? Um, so yeah, dude, I was fortunate, man. I came back and then I went to actually a program called ESP,
Okay.
um, called Elite Soccer Program. It was Adidas ESP, and it was like the top 100, maybe top 100 players in the country got together and you did like the showcase. Dude, it was awesome. I mean, it was, dude, those times were so much fun, man. I wish I could go back and know what I know now and just and do all that again. Um, it's so much fun. And then from there, that I think that's where the coach, one of the assistant coaches saw me, and I got a call maybe 2 days after, and they said, hey, we really like the way that you play. SMU was playing. Shellis Hyndman was the coach. Um, Shellis is a legend. I believe he's the president of United Soccer Coaches.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
yeah, but dude, he had like the winningest record in NCAA
Wow. Okay.
for men's soccer, and he was getting a lot of guys from South America. I mean, we had maybe two, three, four Brazilians at once. We had a Guatemalan national team player, so we had a lot of South American influence. And then we had like little ballers from Dallas who were playing for Dallas Texan who were national champions. Um, dude, we were a solid team, man. So yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. Whenever they called me, I knew where I wanted to go. They're like, "Hey, come up for a visit." Went up for a visit. I already knew what if they said, "Hey, we want you to come to school here," I was gonna be like, "I'm in."
Yeah.
So they actually offered me that scholarship, and I'm like, should I just say yes right away? And I'm like, let me just I'm like, let me I already knew, dude. But I
Yeah.
was like, get into the car ride and I call him like 10 minutes after. I'm like, hey, okay, I'm in. It was funny. I just tried to play like a little like,
A little hard to get, huh?
let me see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was good though. No, dude, it was like dream come true, 100%, man. Um, one of the national team players, his name was Steve Sambo from Columbus, I believe. We did a national team camp together, and I remember he was talking about SMU, and he was like, "Oh, dude, have you been to the campus? Campus is great. The school's great." He was really excited about all of it, and he also played a role in me wanting to do that because like I said, I didn't know much about college. Um, I didn't know what opportunities might look like. So I think whenever that came about, I was like, I'm jumping at it. So it was good.
Okay. So, and after that, after you played for SMU, you got drafted by Seattle Sounders, right? How
Yeah,
how
yeah,
how was that transition? How did that impact your career?
yeah, dude. So that was it was difficult. It was
Was it
difficult.
really?
Yeah, it was. So playing in college, you don't have like you have responsibility. I like to think of myself as like a late bloomer.
Okay.
And I and um I just think that I was still like maybe emotionally and um I had some learning to do, man. I had some learning to do, and when you go from college soccer to professional soccer, you're not, you're not playing with kids anymore. You're not playing with young men anymore. You're playing with men. You're playing with guys who represent their national teams. You're playing with guys who have families and kids. Your coach has a job that if you're not performing, he might lose his job. So,
Yeah.
um, I think I didn't really understand that yet, man. And I'm just like, oh yeah, dude, like I play soccer, it's cool, it's fun, and but I did have it in me. I wanted to take it as far as I could take it, right? I didn't know what I had to learn or what I had to do or go through to kind of get there. And so I was with Seattle for a short time, and then a guy actually who was playing at Ajax came in, and I was, last guy on the roster. So then they cut me, and dude, my world was broken. I caved. It just came crashing down. You're like, you go from thinking, dude, I'm going to the best club in the MLS, and I can't wait, and I'll be patient if I need to. I'll do whatever it takes. To being like, dude, I want to go home. Like, this is, I'm, I don't know where, I don't have a job. I'm not in school. Um, I really didn't have any any money in my accounts.
Right.
Um, so you're just like, you go from cloud nine to like, uh-oh, like what is this? And then dude, I had to, for money, I had to sell my gear that I had from Seattle. I'm like, I had to sell my sweatshirts, had to sell on eBay. Dude, I've never sold anything on eBay, but I was that broke that I was like, dude, I got to sell like my soccer shorts, my training gear. Like, I wanted to keep it for memories and things like that, but was like, dude, I was desperate. Um, so from there, it was like a period of like, okay, what do I do? And that was one of those times when I called my dad, and I'm like, dude, like what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I have one more class, and I think my dad was also like, more than anything, he was just like, just stay calm, it'll work out. Um, but yeah, I think he really didn't have any answers for me either. So, dude, I just hunkered down, man. I went up to SMU every day because I went back to Dallas. I went up to SMU every day, got a bag of balls, and I would just pass the ball against the wall for hours, dude. Probably for like an hour and a half, passing with the
Okay.
right foot, receiving, turning, pass the ball against the wall. I do probably like 1,000 with my right, 1,000 with my left. And dude, it made my passing game so much better. I didn't even have a left foot at that time. My left foot just went from to a different level, from zero to a different level.
Okay.
Um, and then I got some opportunities to play in games with the reserve league at that time. So I played some games with Real Salt Lake and
Okay.
also with FC Dallas. And FC Dallas was right there. So then, and my coach was actually Shellis, who was at SMU, ended up going into FC Dallas. And he's like, dude, we were gonna draft you, he's like, but Seattle scooped you up before we did. And I was like, oh man, dude, that would have been way better. I mean, I would have been in a more in an environment that I'd be more familiar with, the coach I'd be more familiar with. So yeah, I just think it would have been different. But you know, these things happen, and there was something that I had to learn and all of that, and that was like the beginning of me learning, like, okay, there's things that I need to improve on as a person, things I need to improve on as a player. And it's been a long process, man. I mean, it's been, a decade long process of learning, and it won't ever stop. It's going to be until the last day, until the final breath, where it's good, that's the journey. And so whenever I got those opportunities with FC Dallas, I pulled my coach aside and I was like, "Hey, coach, what do you think? Can I come in and train with you guys?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, He's like, 10 days. You can come in for a 10-day trial. Well, 10 days was like the rest of the season, right? So
Okay.
they just never told me to leave, and and I'm like, "Hey, nobody's telling me to leave," so I just keep showing up, right? So then I got more games with FC Dallas, and then I took like, during that off season, I think I went to Bulgaria for a preseason to see if there was something out there that I wanted to do. And while I was out there, I actually got a call from Salt Lake, and Salt Lake was like, "Hey, we traded for you. So then I went to Salt Lake, and Salt Lake was a really nice environment, man. Salt Lake was a really nice environment, and it was um, it was good. It was good, and yeah, I don't know if I'm staying on topic right now, but
Now you're good. It's all right, man.
yeah, but Seattle was rough, dude. I had to learn a lot. Um, and there was a huge part of me that was like, I'm gonna prove these coaches wrong. I'm gonna prove these coaches wrong. But then I had to change my mindset, dude. Because I didn't want to attack my goals with that mentality.
Okay.
So the mentality that I changed it to was, you know what, I'm gonna prove them right. They were right. They saw something in me, they picked me, and they were right. There's something in me that can do it. And that's where I started to focus on. And then obviously the things that weren't benefiting me, I had to change. I had and these were, some things were pretty tough, man. Some things were pretty tough to change. Things that, just maybe my own demons that I had to face and that I had to mature from and grow up from. Um, and although it was tough, it was almost like tough love. It's kind of like, hey, look, dude, you need to go figure some stuff out and go for it. And they told me, they were like, we hope that you continue playing. And I'm like all sad, and I'm like, you guys would never stop. You guys would never stop me from playing. Like, I'll never stop playing because somebody says I can't play for their team. But dude, I had a lot to learn, man. I had a lot to learn, and it's one of those things, like I said before, it's like, man, I would love to go back and do it all again, knowing what I know now and having
Right.
the maturity that I have now. It'd be like it'd be night and day, dude. I'd be so much better. I just thought, just like I thought, being a pro footballer was, it was like, oh, let's be like David Beckham and let's drive the cool cars and let's wear the nicest stuff and and it wasn't about that, dude. It was totally about other things, and it was more about the game and the people that you share the game with. And yeah, so yeah, that was my my experience there with Seattle. Seattle's a
Okay.
great organization. The people were great, great city. Soccer's great. I got a lot of love for them. But yeah, I think, it was a wake up call whenever I made that jump from college to professional soccer. It was a
Okay. So,
re- re-
so after your Seattle Seattle, did you go? Is that when you went to go win the Dallas Cup, like three-time national champion in the
yeah,
NASL,
yeah,
USL?
yeah. So whenever I was in college, I went in my off season, I went to Laredo Heat. So
Okay.
Laredo Heat at the time was USL PDL. USL PDL was like um basically like a second or a third division. It's kind of
Okay.
like a second or third division. Um, More like a third division. And I think there were like 72 teams. But the environment was great that they created. And, we played teams from Canada. We played teams from like one team we played in the final was from Canada. 72 teams across the United States. And yeah, so that was the first national championship. That was after my freshman season at SMU.
Okay.
Uh, so going in my sophomore year at SMU was like, yeah, I remember my coach being like, he pulled us around and he's like, "What'd you do over summer?" And some of the kids were like, "Oh, I trained with my club team." And then he's like, "What'd you do over summer?" And then he gets to me. He's like, "What'd you do over summer?" I'm like, "I was in Laredo." He's like, "Yeah, what'd you do?" I'm like, uh, "We played in the PDL." He's like, "Yeah," and how he knew what he was doing, what he was saying. Like, "Yeah, we won a national championship," and he's like, and then he's basically like, guys, these are the things that it's difficult to set out and say, hey, we're going to win a championship, and
Hmm.
you just go out and you do your best, right? But he's like, in the off season, I think it's important to really be in an environment where you're going to train with the intention of not just maintaining fitness, but to improve, right? So competitive environments, and then obviously gameplay was very beneficial there too. And so that was the first one. And then the second one was after I left Salt Lake, I came back to Austin. And at that time, Austin was a PDL team,
Hmm.
and Austin was doing, dude, we had Kyrie Shelton. Kyrie Shelton's plays at Kansas City. You know Kyrie Shelton?
It was a
Keep,
tough forward, right?
yeah, he's tall, tall,
Yeah, yeah.
tall,
I don't
African
think he's
American.
here anymore though. I know who
Oh
you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah, he
oh yeah,
left. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. He might be out, but so Kyrie Shelton is was there. We had several players that were Chris Tierpak, who played, dude, he played all over the place. Played with Chivas USA, played I forget what other teams he played with, but he did really well. We had a lot of players, dude, and
Okay.
we had Paul Dalglish, who is like his dad was King Kenny. He was basically the all-time leading goal scorer for Liverpool. He was Liverpool's manager. So we were getting like in our training sessions, we were getting information like from my understanding directly from Liverpool. And then
Wow.
we'd be doing these training sessions, and then you go and watch Liverpool play, and you're like, oh, I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you start connecting dots and stuff like that. It was really cool, man. What a great experience. We won the title there. So same league, but two different teams. So one in Laredo and then one in Austin. And then the third one was after that season, I went to like the year after or 2 years after, I went to San Antonio Scorpions. So San Antonio Scorpions were NASL. I don't know if you're familiar with
Hmm.
NASL,
A little
but
bit.
so that was the old league where like
Isn't
Kevin.
isn't that isn't sorry, isn't that league still on? That's where the Rowdies play at right now. If I'm not wrong, Cosmo still play there, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm I wonder. I
I,
don't think the NASL is still around. It might be the NPSL that they moved into.
where does the
Um,
Rowdies play? Oh, okay. The Rowdies, where do they play? Tampa Bay
mm,
Rowdies?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Tampa Bay Rowdies were in the NASL. I think that they might have moved into, oh, or is it? I don't know
I,
what they moved
I'm
into.
I'm pretty sure it's that one because it's like second division now, and
Okay,
they have see St. Louis was there. They moved up to
okay,
the MLS.
okay,
The Cosmos was there, I think.
okay.
I don't know if they're still there though.
Cosmos were definitely in it. Tampa Bay Rowdies were definitely in it. So yeah, that was that league, dude. We played Fort Lauderdale Strikers
Okay.
uh, in the final, and dude, it was awesome, man. We had some great players there. Um, some really, really. Josh Saunders was our goalkeeper. We had Eric Hasley. Um, Eric Hasley was French guy, played for Vancouver Whitecaps. We had the Canadian center back, um, Can Adrian Can. Um, man, it was what a group, what a group. The
Okay.
coach Alan Messina did a great job. He's still doing well. I think he won another one after that. Um, so yeah, man, those are three different cities in Texas: Laredo, San Antonio, and Austin. So,
Okay.
uh, like I said, man, I love the game and I love Texas. So I'm really happy that we've been able to win some trophies for the communities here. It was, I mean, awesome memories for sure.
Right. So you play in different leagues, right? From MLS, NASL, right?
Yep.
And USL. Can you
Yep.
describe the different playing styles and coaching methods for each one that you experienced?
Yeah, the coaching methods, well, one, obviously budgets are different, right? So in the NSL, we were fortunate to have, a nice stadium. We had nice locker rooms. We had a ton of resources. We had a good staff. Um, so in the NASL, I think we had everything we needed um, to really be successful in terms of like the coaching methods and all that. Alan Marcina was, I believe he played for Canada, and then played in MLS, I believe, for some of the Canadian teams. Um, and I thought it was really good. In terms of tactics and things like that. Um, it wasn't it wasn't like it wasn't like tactical overload. It was like manage the environment, manage the locker room, manage the players, give them responsibilities, and let them play, right? And manage the environment. It was always fun. Our recovery days, we'd play basketball for recovery. We'd play knockout. So you're like, and I do that with some of my groups now. I'm like, because you're building team camaraderie doing that. You're There's a little bit of competition to it. You're recovering, obviously. um you're seeing something different. You're breaking up the monotony, because dude, when you're going to the training center day after day after day and you're doing the same thing day after day after day, you kind of want something to break up that monotony. So I was very um responsive, and uh I liked how they did that, and I noticed it. And I think that those things play a role into the success of teams. And like MLS, for example, um, Seattle, I felt, was more rigid, in terms of how they went about things. Um, Real Salt Lake and Dallas was a little bit more relaxed. I don't want to say relaxed, but it was just a different vibe.
Okay.
And like, for example, the locker room at RSL, the locker room, it said the team is the star. Like, it had written like in huge letters. Like, that's the first thing you see. The team is the
Okay.
star. So their motto for the team was like, we don't have like any superstars. They were like a mid-budget team, so they weren't bringing in like a David Beckham. They weren't bringing in a player who, and by all means, like David Beckham, awesome, was locked on, awesome. Terry Henry, awesome. All the respect to those guys, but the way that RSL did it, they didn't do it that way. They had they had players who were definitely high level players. Um, and like Kyle Beckerman, for example, was a
Yeah.
center defensive mid.
Nick Romando.
Nick Raimondo, dude, and these guys are cool, like chill, like cool dudes. Again, I think it was another thing where it was like, man, I wish I knew now I wish I knew then what I know now, right?
Right.
And just that moment, man, you're 24 years old, 25 years old at that age, and you're like, dude, I'm getting to play ball, and I get to shoot and train with Nick Raimondo, Kyle Beckerman, these guys that are willing to help guide you and give you guidance and support. It was cool, man. I mean, it was great, but the environment there, it was definitely high demand, man. We were working, and we were working every day, and we were working hard every day. Like, don't get me wrong, we had our recovery days and things like that, but um, you're going to the gym in the morning, on travel days, you're everything was about the game. And tactically, I think Jason Christ was our coach. I think tactically, what I really enjoyed were, and what I learned was, we played a 4-4-2 diamond. I love that. I really, really enjoyed that, the way that functioned. We had all the right players in there to play. Um, and we kept the ball. Our intentions were to keep the ball in the midfield with four overload. Um, yeah, man, we were good, man. We were very good, and tactically, defensively was really where the coaches kind of really want you to be sharp, right? So a
Okay.
lot of preseason training is based on, hey, how are we going to defend? Are we going to do high press? Are we going to do a mid block, a low block? What we would do is we would kind of do traps. So we would kind of let them play, and then once we saw a trap, boom, we trap, and then we look to recover the ball, gain possession, and obviously if you can go quick, go quick. But if not, then just maintain possession until something opens up, and then go for the opportunity. But yeah, I would say like just the amount of competition, the physical training was
Right.
very high level in the MLS. The NASL with Scorpions was a very good level too. And I think that's why we won. I think that's why we won that championship, was because we treated it, and guys who were in there were caliber of MLS, were MLS caliber, but we also treated it like an MLS club, and it was awesome. It was great.
Okay. So we gotta start wrapping it down because we've been here for an hour, and I know you're pretty busy. You
Dude,
say you have other stuff you have to do.
where'd the time go? But this is it's been fun to chat about this, man.
Question is, what would you advise somebody who's starting a career? Some young athlete.
Yeah. I'd say discipline and attitude. If you can, if they know where they want to go, if they can be focused and they can show up every day with the right attitude to put in the work, understand that there's going to be failure, there's going to be difficult times, persevere, stay focused on where they want to go, and just know that it's not going to be a perfect road. There's going to be challenges, and the best athletes all have them. Every player gets injuries, every player suffers losses. How do you handle those? And the best players and the ones that are going to go the furthest are the ones that handle those setbacks the best.
Okay. Yeah. No. That was great. um, as you reflect on your coaching journey, what legacy do you hope to leave for your players and your community as well?
I hope that I give players a belief in themselves. I think that so much of this comes from believing in yourself. If you have a skill but you don't believe in yourself, you're only going to go so far. And players who really do believe in themselves, who maybe have less skill, maybe they have more of a chance, um, because they are, um, they believe in the work that they're putting in. They believe in the time that they're dedicating. If they're eating well, if they're sleeping well, if they're watching games and observing players, and using those characteristics to implement into their own game. Always finding ways to, like, small victories, right? Always finding ways to improve their game. Um, that's going to increase your belief in yourself. But I think it's that they have that, and one player comes to mind. He was kind of struggling, didn't make the team that he wanted to make. Um, but he showed up every day this summer for training, and I'm like, dude, those are the things that are gonna help you. It kind of lights a fire under you. He's handled the adversity the right way. And now he's traveling abroad, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm gonna reach out to one of my buddies and see if maybe he can help you while you're visiting your grandfather abroad. And it's like, things can change in an instant like that. But if he starts believing what maybe a coach told him, hey, you're not good enough to play for this team. Hey, you don't deserve this, or hey, then maybe that's all he'll get. But if he says, no, you know what? I'm putting in the work. I know I can do this. I believe in myself. I'm training well. I care about this. I'm willing to endure. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to grow. I'm going to give it another shot. Then, and sometimes all you need is an opportunity, somebody to believe in you, and bam, everything can change from there.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever seen that movie, I'll Go, that the dream begins with.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah,
it's kind of like that, where he's about to go home because his dad just died. He comes
yeah,
back into a field like, nobody can tell me I can't play, just you. And even then, I still won't believe you.
for sure, man. No, that's you almost have to have that mentality, man, because somebody, whether it's a teammate or maybe your opponent or a coach, they're gonna say, nah, you can't do it, or no, you're not good enough, and you have to have that belief in yourself, man, and you have to say, hey, you know what, I can do this. And be as realistic as you can in terms of like, hey, things are gonna happen, setbacks are gonna happen. How am I going to deal with them? How am I going to overcome them? And how do I make it work? So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you ever say that to a player just to get him see what his
What his reaction is?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because sometimes when you say, hey, and you mentioned earlier, like, hey, I'm gonna show you I could do it, I'm
For
gonna show
sure.
you I could play. So would you say that to a player like, hey, maybe this isn't for you? At
Dude, you know what? I think I think at a high level, I think that's sometimes is necessary. I think maybe whenever I went to Seattle, I think whenever in retrospect, whenever I look back at it, I think that was the message that they wanted to get across, was like, hey, dude, you can do this, but you can't do it here. And I didn't know that at the time, but after so many years of thinking about it, I think that's, or at least that's the way I want to interpret it. That's the
okay,
best way, the healthiest way that I can interpret it, where it's like, hey, you know what? They were looking out for me. They wanted me to do well, but they also wanted me to know, like, you're not good enough. And if you want to get good enough, then go get good enough, and now I wouldn't do that to like a youth player. I don't think. I have I have been honest with players and said, hey, you know what? Like, you're not slide tackling because you're afraid to slide, And they'd
yeah,
be like, I'm not afraid to slide. And I'm like, well, it looks like you're afraid to slide, like I'm just telling you, it looks like that. Maybe that's not what it is. And you'll see them, like, what? What do you mean? I'm not afraid. And then you're trying to light that fire. So I think there's definitely levels to it. And with youth athletes, you really do have to be mindful of how are they going to respond? Is this going to kill their confidence, or is this going to spark a fire?
right,
And I think that's the challenge of a lot of coaches, is what's the right approach? And and following up after those conversations and checking on the player and letting them know, like, hey, dude, I'm here for you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to tear you down. I'm here to help build you up. And it's not just on the field, but if you need to have a phone call, if you need to, if your parents and us need to meet up for a coffee and have a chat and make a game plan for you, like, we can do that.
right,
Not just seeing them as a number, and you see them as people and you want to help them genuinely. So I think that's where you can really help players.
right. No, I agree. One of the things that I said to my players is, I already believe in you. All you have to do is believe in yourself. Don't make me a believer. I already believe in you. I already know you could do this. Get it in your mind.
For sure, for sure. No, that's part of our job. It's like making them believe, man, making them believe in what they're doing and what we're teaching. um Believing in each other, trusting themselves. um so yeah, I think that word and the power of belief is massive. And whether your belief is negative or whether it's positive, there's power in wherever you are there. And I think it's important to keep it positive, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, I completely agree. So, Coach Leonel.
yeah, yeah.
My bad. What's next for you?
I've got some programs that I want to continue to develop. And I'm seeing them develop. I want to continue to share the game. I'm passionate about traveling as well. Um, and I'd love to see if I can incorporate, um, whether it's taking teams or taking a group to either do some training in Spain or training in Germany or training abroad somewhere. And then, maybe doing a little bit of history tours or culture tours for them because like I said, it's important to be well-rounded,
Right.
not just be a soccer player, but understand other cultures, and shaping the human and shaping the people that we're developing. Um, so yeah, there are a couple of projects that I have in mind, that it's kind of like how do you how do you use your passions to to help you um live your life, right?
Okay.
How do you combine like your livelihood and pay your bills and stuff, but also stay true to your passions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. What can listeners learn more about you?
Where can they learn more about
Yeah.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. Where can they know?
Oh, um, man, I've got like some social media outlets, probably like on Instagram. My handle's at Leone the Lion. That's kind of like my fun little thing that I made up in high school, and it's kind of
Okay.
just there. Um, and then on Twitter or X as well, at Leone the Lion as well. So I kind of branded that thing. Um, yeah, so there, and then I've got soccer programs. So one of them's elitesummerprogram.com. Also 512futsal.com, and leonesplayerdevelopment.com. So yeah, I
Okay.
mean, if anybody ever wants to reach out, hit me up on X or on Instagram. Instagram's probably the best way, at Leone the Lion.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes. Everybody can find
Cool.
it there. All right.
Yeah, cool,
Uh,
man.
the next couple questions are just silly questions, real dumb questions. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the most bizarre halftime snack you've seen a player eat?
Bizarre. Oh, probably
Mhm.
like any player.
Any player.
Dude, I had a kid bust out some Skittles
Okay.
when I mean at that time I think Marshawn Lynch was, he was eating all the Skittles and playing for Seattle, uh, playing for the football team. So it was like a big thing, and I'm like, Skittles? I'm like, Skittles? And I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, other than that, man, I mean, it's been pretty normal. Like guys are eat a banana, or I had another teammate who would boil sweet potatoes, and he'd bring them in his little container. He would eat those at halftime. I thought that was pretty funny too.
Okay. I had a kid, one of my players, it was recreational, right? He asked for
Yeah,
a hot dog and like a pizza during halftime.
that's awesome. Those are the kids. But dude, that game is that's what makes it so much fun, is because you're getting those types of the things that the kids say. You're just like, oh my God, dude,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. If you had to play a game with field cover and bubble wrap, how do you think your team would do?
if I had to play a game with the field covered in
Hmm.
bubble wrap,
Yes.
how would my team do?
Yes.
Um, Interesting, dude. I they'd probably be slide tackling a lot more, man. So the ones that don't want to slide tackle, they'd be making those tackles. Although I don't really encourage slide tackling. I'm the old Maldini quote. That's, if you have to slide tackle, or if you have to make a tackle, you've already made a mistake, right? So or that means you've made a mistake. So I'd say yeah, I think it'd be a tough performance, man. I don't know if that would be a good one for us, bubble wrap, but I think it would be fun, and there would definitely be a lot of distraction by popping all of the bubbles. You got to make sure all the bubbles get popped.
For sure. If you had to coach a game using only puppets to communicate,
Yeah.
what would your strategy be?
Well,
Okay.
if that, um, so if I had to, can you repeat that? If I
If you had to communicate,
puppets,
if you had to coach a game using only puppets to communicate, what would your strategy be?
using only puppets to communicate. Um, so I'm coaching the game and I'm using
Puppets.
puppets
Yep.
to communicate to my players.
Yes.
That'd be kind of fun, actually. That would be a lot of fun, dude. Oh man, I mean, I think I could probably communicate pretty well. Um, definitely, I'm just thinking like more energy, more energy, more energy, right? Head the
Yeah.
ball down, right? That's funny. Hey, more aggressive, tackles. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I definitely would just be doing ton of hand signals and, just probably very energetic. That's for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Energy.
And the last one is, do you secretly have Ninja Warriors playing for your team?
Ninja Warriors?
Yeah. Are they secretly in your team that you know?
It's possible, man. I get some kids that, they'll bust out some Taekwondo and I'm like, dude, where did that come from? And um yeah, they are little ninjas, but definitely the younger ones, they're a little bit more versatile and diverse and their training. So there's probably a few that are hidden in there for sure.
Okay. And that's all the questions I got, Coach.
Cool. No, that's a good one, man. I appreciate it, dude. I really appreciate the opportunity and thanks for bringing me on.